Hey guys, I'm Stephanie Cohen. I'm a speech language pathologist and I support kids who are learning to eat and their families. And this episode of Trust at the Table is all about a stress-free transition to solids. I get lots of questions about transitioning to solid foods, and this is a little bit of a stressful time right now. If you are operating at an elevated stress level, sometimes things that wouldn't normally be stressful have the potential to cause you more stress. So my aim is to make this as easy and simple as possible so that you can enjoy the process. So lots of parents ask me questions about transitioning their baby to solids, and I'm going to tell you the answers to the three biggest ones I get. First, when is the right time to transition to solids? So the recommendations have changed over the last 30 to 40 years. It used to be that we recommended starting at 4 months, and then the recommendation shifted to 6 months. And it still generally is around 6 months, but what we know now is we are looking more at a child's developmental readiness. So what does that mean? Well, as babies develop, they learn a sequence of new skills in a predictable order, and we as therapists look for things that we call pre-feeding skills. Those are the skills that tell us that this baby may be ready to start eating solid foods. So what are those pre-feeding skills that we look for? I'm going to tell you about 3 of them. 1, your baby is stable in a sitting position. So when you put your baby down on the floor, he or she can sit up for several seconds without falling over. Or your baby's pretty stable on your lap with a little bit of support. So that means that he's got good control of his head and can use his arms to reach. 2, your baby is showing interest in everybody eating around her. So what does that mean? It means your baby's watching you intently as you are eating your meals or snacks or drinking. You might even notice your baby moving his mouth around as he's watching you. These are readiness signs. You also might notice that your baby's reaching out and trying to grab what you're eating or drinking. And usually we push hands away, but we're going to talk about why that might be an opportunity for learning. 3, what I want you to look for is your baby starting to bring her hands to her mouth, particularly with objects, teethers, rattles, bringing those teethers and rattles to his or her mouth and starting to kind of munch on them and explore them. This should start happening around 4 months. So if you're exclusively breastfeeding, the recommendation is still that you wait until about 6 months to transition your baby to solid foods in order to preserve that breastfeeding relationship. But does that mean that you can't do anything before 6 months? My personal recommendation is that you think about a variety of mealtime experiences that your baby can participate in. You can offer your baby very small tastes of things that you're eating without going for a volume of intake. Those can be experiences that will slowly expose your baby to eating and get him or her ready for the variety of flavors and textures to come. 2, what should I start with? So knowing which foods to pick in the beginning can feel tricky for a lot of parents. Should I do baby-led weaning? Should I start just with purees? Well, the answer is you don't have to choose just one way. You can do both. We used to say that you gotta start with purees. You should definitely start with a single grain cereal, and it used to be that the recommendation was rice cereal. With the discovery of arsenic in rice cereal, that recommendation has fallen out of favor. Some families still want to use single grain cereals, and that's fine. Other families want to start with a single pureed food out of a jar. That's fine too. But what I want to tell you that hopefully will decrease your stress level right now about choosing which foods to start with is that you can offer your baby tastes of whatever you've prepared for your families. Maybe you've prepared a dinner that's got a little bit of a sauce to it, and you can put a little bit on your fingers or let your baby put his or her fingers in it and kind of play around and explore. Those experiences touching the foods that we're eating allow your baby to learn. Maybe you've made some mashed potatoes and you want to give your baby a little tiny taste experience. Wonderful. Your kids are learning by watching you eat. They're looking at the food in front of them, they're watching how you use your mouth to eat food, and they're smelling the smells at family meal times. And so we as therapists always encourage our families to let kids reach and explore as they show interest. Some parents think that you gotta start with vegetables so that babies won't develop a preference for sweets. I'm gonna tell you that babies are innately born with a preference for sweet taste. So we're not gonna prevent that by starting with vegetables. So just think about offering a variety of foods and don't worry too much about exactly what food you offer first, second, and third. Just enjoy, follow your baby's lead and interest. Lots of parents ask me about allergies. You may have heard the recommendation to do one food every 3 to 5 days. Do I think you have to stick to that rigidly? I don't, but it is definitely a good idea to keep track of the foods that you're introducing to your child. So if he or she has some sort of reaction, you can play detective and figure out what that offending food was. The evidence has shown us that earlier introduction of potential allergens is a great way to prevent the development of allergies. Absolutely, if you're a family with a history of food allergies, please seek the advice of your pediatrician. So the last question I get all the time is, what's wrong? So you might introduce a new food to your baby and he or she might make a really big grimacing face like it's the worst experience of his life. What I want to tell you is that if your older child made those faces or if an adult made those faces in response to a new taste experience, then yeah, it probably would mean that they didn't really like what they were trying. For babies, remember, this is their first experience with all of these new flavors. It's their first time trying to figure out what to do with their tongues and their jaws and their lips and how to move food back in their mouths to swallow. So those facial expressions and behavioral responses that you see, they don't necessarily mean your babies don't like it. What they might mean, and probably do mean, is, oh my gosh, this is a brand new experience and I am not quite sure what to do right now. So watch your baby for those signs of developmental readiness, stable in a sitting position, stable with a little bit of support. Watch for your baby to show interest in your eating and drinking. Don't stress too much about which food is the perfect food to start with. Just follow your baby's cues and what he or she is showing interest in and have fun with it. Remember, this is a process. This is an experience that your baby wants to share with you, and it should be fun. If you're a parent who's tried all of these strategies and you still feel like your child is struggling or you don't know what to do next, reach out to your pediatrician, ask for a referral to a feeding specialist. We are out here to support you. See you soon.